Hey, everybody. Welcome to Tattva Tuesday. This is Lindsay Warwick, the conduit on YouTube and Spotify for the Tattva Tuesday interview series, where I am interviewing people about their spiritual journey as well as their spiritual offerings. So excited this week to have Stevie Goggans on here. She's a yoga teacher, a ceremony facilitator, and a Bhakta. Hey, Stevie, how's it going?
Hi, girl. It's good. It's going good. Warm, sunshiny, another sunshiny day in Mexico. So I can't complain.
Yes, God bless.
No, it's literally like it's sunshine every day here. It's like the Twilight Zone.
Living your best life.
Yes, the best way.
So it is so. I'm great. I'm sitting outside on my porch right now. It is not Mexico, but it's South Carolina, and there are some palm trees in my direct line of sight. Nice. I have my plants around me, so I'm like kind of in Mexico, but not.
Oh, yes. Mexico.
Yes.
Good. I'm glad it's warmed up there too. So nice.
Yes, it's been a little weird with the ice storm and the cold temps. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. It feels like spring, for sure. So it is lovely to have you.
Thanks.
There are so many things that we could talk about. I want to talk first. I'll just kind of say it out there that I met Stevie a couple of years ago, right? At Yoga in Common. Mm-hmm. And I've had the pleasure of taking your yoga classes, getting to know you, and then also doing the Kula Collective yoga 300-hour yoga teacher training, and just learning from you and journeying with you. And it's just been such an honor to get to know you. I think you're just such a magical being. And yeah, so tell us first.
Thank you.
Yes, tell us about.
I think you're a magical being.
Thank you. Tell us about tell us about your spiritual path. Like, how did you get on the spiritual path? And, how did you find yoga?
Okay, well, it all started May 26, 1988. No, I was born a very long time ago. God, yeah, this is a good topic. Because it was pretty, I guess it is for everybody, like life-changing, but for me it felt big. I found yoga when I was 21, 33 now, and I had been since I was like 15, with drugs and alcohol, and I just like, I feel like growing up, like I never had peace of mind. Like I was always restless. I always felt uncomfortable. I always felt like there's got to be something more, and also didn't know how to manage like the hormonal like feelings of being a young girl and all that stuff. And so I just always felt like, ugh. And so I turned to drugs and alcohol for a long time. And then when I was 21, I was trying to find some relief. Like I was just trying to like find some light at the end of the tunnel. And I remember seeing this yoga class by Angela Jones, little plug in Pawleys Island. And and I don't even know if she's teaching anymore, but I went and I got there, and there was like me and like probably like 4 older, what I thought were like really old women. They were probably in their like 50s and 60s, and me. And I was like, like, what am I doing here? And I stuck to it. I did the class, and I just remember driving home after the class feeling like that sense of peace in my own body, and like real, like the first time I felt like I really landed in my body and was living from my body rather than my mind. And so it just like, I was on this like high, and And the class wasn't like a rigorous vinyasa. I actually didn't get into yoga through like the physical side. I know a lot of people do, but it was like Iyengar. It was very slow. It was very like practical, but like spiritually, I felt something. And then it stuck. And then I just started going like regularly. I didn't actually put down the drugs and alcohol until I was 24. I went back and forth, but I remember hearing this quote from like a documentary on Paramahansa Yogananda, and he said, he was telling one of his students, like the student was like, oh, you think I can still drink and smoke over there with my friends and then come here and meditate? Like, how does that work? And he was like, just keep practicing, and all that other stuff will fall away. And that's kind of what happened at 24. I just realized like that stuff was taking me out and wasn't serving me. And I wanted to go in and get to something more sustainable and healthy. And so I let all of that other stuff go. And the same time I was getting sober, I was doing my yoga teacher training, my first one, my 200-hour, when I was 24, and then just started teaching. And yeah, I mean, I can talk for a whole hour about like what's happened since then, and we can get into all that. But yeah, that was kind of my introduction, was when I was 21. And I've heard a lot of people say like, I came to yoga because I wanted to get in shape and I thought it would be a good workout. And that's great, because then it brought them in and then they found more. But for me, it was kind of the opposite. Like, I came in because the spiritual elixir was there, and I just like drank it up, and I was like, this is like, okay, because I think I'm always looking for a way to get high. I mean, that's like part of like who I am, is like I want. And so to be able to find that through my own body and through my own like practice is was just like mind-blowing to me. So, and then it's just taken me on this like, whoa, crazy, like, I don't even know what's happened in the last 10 years kind of journey. Like, which is just it never ends. It's just a constant ongoing process,
Right. Yeah. Totally. Like, it's just, everything just continues to unfold, and like, the layers continue to come off of us. And I got chills when you were talking, because we have so much similarity in our story, our yoga story. I did not go for the physical. I literally went to finish some of my degree requirements, and I was 21 as well.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I actually, I hated yoga at first, but then once I started to feel those emotional, spiritual, mental benefits, that hooked me in, versus the physical. I mean, the physical aspect was probably the last thing that kind of was the reason why I liked yoga. But I think it is interesting, because I have seen a lot of people, they go for the physical, and then it's like, whoa, there's so much more to this than the physical aspects.
Yeah.
And so I also, can relate to you in the sense where, in my younger years, I was very, I was afraid of my own power, my own spiritual gifts, and I would binge drink and like party like crazy. And that has shifted over time. But yeah, I've gone through periods of, sobriety, and then, not. So it's just been it's an interesting journey. Like, it's continual looking within. So
yeah. And it's not like, I used to think that it was very linear, like which is a very masculine way of looking at it. And it's not that the masculine is bad. I'm trying to like actually find that balance between the masculine and the feminine, but it's like, it's a very masculine, or like just very structural way to look, like, oh, this path is linear, I'm just going to keep going up, 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 up. And what I've found, and what's been said through other teachers and mentors, is like, it's a spiral, or it's a circle, that it's like, this path isn't just like you get on and you do never get off, but it's like you kind of like fall back, or, you know, like I'll revert back to some old ways. And like, you know, like for me now, it's not drugs and alcohol, but like I'll catch myself like this week I was sick and I wanted to just like binge watch Netflix, and sometimes that's okay, you know, but it's like just finding that that we're never really off the path, and that these like setbacks that I felt like I've had in my journey really haven't been setbacks at all. They've really been like part of the journey. And so it's taken me a while, and still, and it's like you said, like it's constantly unfolding. It's not like I'm just gonna hope, I don't know, I don't think I'm gonna wake up enlightened in this lifetime, but like it's just this constant peeling back, getting to know ourselves on a deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper level. Um and sometimes, yeah, I fall off the path, or fall off my ideal of the path, I would say. And then learn later that like that was all part of the path, you know, all these hardships and mistakes and like behavioral things that I wish I could get rid of. It's like, oh, but each time that I fall off, I'm like learning from it, if that makes sense. So yeah,
Yes,
girl,
it does. And it
that's a big
just
one.
totally. And it just made me, well, thank you so much first for sharing so candidly about your experience to get onto the path. And just, I always love talking to you, like your honesty and your authenticity. Like I always feel you're so genuine, and just love you.
I love you
And
too.
thanks. And that just got me thinking about our teacher training this last year, the 300 hour, and how like I was at Yoga in Common last weekend, and I was, you know, in that space that we shared so much time together, and tears and hugs and all the things. And like you came into my brain, and I was like, oh, I miss Stevie so much. And then I thought about how at the beginning of that training, like how different of a person I was, and like just how shamanic it really was. Like people were like unable to complete it for whatever reason, or like all of our shadows were coming up and out. And I just, you know, have to say that you held such a beautiful sacred container for all of us. And yeah, I don't know. It just got me thinking about that, about how intense that training was. And I know you've been a yoga teacher, a facilitator for a little while now. So I don't know if you wanted to talk about that, but I mean, I've experienced you as a teacher and a facilitator and a Bhakta, and you're just amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I don't know if you can hear that. I'm in Mexico. Anyway.
Oh, Mexico.
It's really loud, and people are building things all the time, and I have neighbors really close to me. Tight quarters here, which I love about living here, but we can talk about that later. Yeah, I was thinking about the 300 hour this morning while I was like getting up and getting ready, and how intense that training. I mean, it was a 6 months training. It was just like, I mean, I think the collective energy has been, we all know, like crazy, and just like so much has come up in the last 2 years. And but like that was a really intense for me too, you know. It was like a lot of big lessons in there. And I mean, I learn from facilitating teacher trainings, like every time I teach a teacher training, I learn something, like, or a lot of things. And this was the first 300 hour that I had co-facilitated with Sunny and Kula Collective, and man, like big lessons. But one of the lessons that I just shared about came out of that was like huge for me, was that something that I learned from my teacher Angel, which is like having conflict in our lives, like whether it be with another person, inner conflict with myself, or outside circumstances, like, you know, someone breaking their ankle, or, you know, in the middle of training, or whatever the case. Like there's always like crazy stuff going on, but that conflict is not me being off the path. Like,
yes, I'm so glad you were talking about this. I wanted you to talk about this. I'm so, yes, we are here So
we are in. But that conflict is not being off the path, that conflict is being on the path, and that conflict is actually a part of the path. And when we separate it, that's when we get into like spiritual bypassing, where I'm like, no, everything is good all the time. And if it's not, then it's got to be like somebody else's shit. And I can't deal with it. I'm just going to go over here and sing mantras and be in my bubble. And that's beautiful, but like that's spiritual bypassing. And something else that I was taught is that like to be spiritual, what that one definition of that is to be fully integrated as a person. And so that means integrating all parts of ourselves. And so conflict gives us this opportunity to show up, to wake up, and to integrate some part of myself that like I've been avoiding,
yeah,
or to really just take a look at it. And so that was huge for me. It's something that like I've always heard from my teacher, but we forget these things. We have to be like I have to be constantly reminded of all these like spiritual nuggets. But she always reminds me that like, hey, this is yet another opportunity for you to wake up and to go into the conflict with like an open heart and like fresh eyes. And that by doing that, like some awakening happens to like some part of myself that's been asleep, or I just like, I learned how to handle conflicts while still holding and taking care of myself. So it's like this big, like, how do I like meet this person and still hold myself in integrity, in love and compassion, and also like hold that person in love and compassion, even if they're like who I think is Satan or whatever, like I don't really believe in Satan, but since you're in South Carolina, no, I'm just kidding.
I mean, here I am.
So like, yeah, so just holding
I'm
myself.
so glad you brought this up.
It's so
good. I mean, how crazy my life, our lives are as human beings, like, we're spiritual beings having human experience, but last year was rough for me in a lot of ways. And there was a lot of conflict, with others, with myself. And so I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was like, Jedi mind tricking you. I was like, I hope she brings that up. Like conflict is the path. And like, we've had so many conversations about this, and it's like that whole idea, like you talked about, integrating your shadow self with your light body self. And my shaman, one of them that I work with, I work with a male shaman who's the Lakota culture, and then a female who's the Rose Priestess lineage. So I like to take, we take what we need from whatever sources. But he told me once that with every level of light in somebody, there is that amount of darkness as well. It's just having sovereignty and deciding. But what would life even be without the conflict, or without the resistance or the dissonance? That it would be nothing. It would be, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's hard though. Right. And it's hard though when you're in those conflicts, like leaning into the conflict, like leaning in, like, what can I learn from here, and how can I hold myself and my space, frame my energy, and also hold integrity in that space. But
yeah, and it's really like something like when I was going through a breakup, 5-6 years ago, that was really tough, and it, being in that was like it feels like, for me, when I'm in some kind of crisis mode or conflict, or stuff's just not going my way, like that it's never going to change. Like when we're in it, when I'm in like just depression or anxiety, it's like, it's going to be like this forever. And then I spiral, I spin out. And so it's good for me to remember that everything is temporary, and that this too shall pass is actually like one of my favorite things to say. But also, like, when I'm in it, like one of the things that I was taught to do is to actually like feel, like literally feel what's happening when I'm like feeling anxious or depressed or upset or whatever the thing is, to go in and actually feel it in my physical body and like turn my attention to my like little self, like, little Stevie. Because usually when we are behaving outwardly with conflict, we're operating from like a place of when we were like 3 years old, like that's like where we're operating from, is this like whatever issues were there is like is what we picked up and we're programmed in how to respond to our environment and stuff. So anyway, if I can just turn my attention towards like the little girl who's hurting inside and really just like be with myself, even if it's for like a minute, it could be excruciating. I mean, it's hard to sit with myself for a minute when I'm in pain, and instead of just distracting with whatever. So I started to learn how to do that, and the more I've done that, the more familiar it becomes as a practice. And so it's easier to be like, all right, I'm feeling this way, I'm just going to pause and sit with it for a little bit before I do anything else. And then also, like, something Angel shared with me was like healthy distraction. So it's like, if it becomes too much, like this conflict is going on, whatever it is, and I am just like overwhelmed and can't take it anymore, then like healthy distraction, which means for me, like go for a walk on the beach, or like eat some vegan ice cream. I don't really eat ice cream, but they have sorbet here in Mexico, which is really good, and it's vegan. So, or like whatever your like healthy treat would be to like get out of that mindset for a little bit and then go back to it later. So these are all stuff that like I talk really good about, but like, God, it's such a practice. Like, just like, this is never, when I'm
I love
in it,
how honest you are. You're like, yeah, I sound amazing, but
like, I can tell you how to do it.
Same.
Yeah.
It's always easier. It's like always easier to guide others sometimes than it is to hold ourselves to that level of accountability or whatever. But healthy distraction, I think, is important too. It's like, feel it, but like don't completely marinate in it. I feel like everything in life it's like a balance. So trying to find that balance in that, I
know. Yeah, I used to hate that word, balance. Like, just that, like, just that word, it just sounded to me like really boring, because I liked like the thrills, like the ups and the downs and the highs, and like if I'm gonna be low, or
drama,
be real low. Drama queen. So it's taken me a while.
It's fun.
Yeah, but now I do like that word, and I am trying to like, I think I'm living a pretty balanced life as of right now, and that's just like taken a lot of time of getting used to like the peacefulness that I do feel, like, because even that was foreign to me, because I felt so like not at peace in my body and mind for so long, that when I started to experience these levels of like serenity and peace and just like kind of evenness, like nothing's amazing, but nothing's awful, and just kind of like right here. And for me, at first I was like, ugh, what is this? Like, how do I
stability? Ugh.
Right.
I feel
and
that.
Now it's like, like feels really good to just have peace of mind and just balance. Have some balance in my life. Maybe it's getting older. I don't know.
It could be, because I'm feeling that way too. Like I used to love like the drama and the thrills, and now I'm like, if it's not good for my nervous system, you gotta go. Like I just can't. I literally can't anymore. I'm too old.
I know.
But I was thinking too, because you mentioned that you were sick, and like I know we've joked about this kind of, but I lived in Costa Rica for a little while, and I love to travel, and so do you. And you've had some amazing traveling experiences, and we were joking about how like, let's talk about how we've been sick on our travels. And it actually made me think that during the shamanic 300 hour with you, I got COVID. I was so sick, and that
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
you know, me versus me, it felt like. But yeah, when I lived in Costa Rica too, I got dengue fever, and I thought literally I was going to die there. And my shaman was like, that's great. He's like, there
Like,
is an aspect of you that will die there. But it's like the rite of passage to travel. I don't know if you want to talk, let's talk about your travels. I'm being silly about being sick. Like, I'm glad you're feeling better, of course. But if you want to talk a little bit about your travels and
yeah,
all
I
of
know.
that. Yeah.
I should write like a book about like all the places I've gotten deathly ill in the world. Just like
The
we were talking about.
medicina, that's where the
Yeah, la
medicine is.
medicina. I know. And it's just funny when you said about the shaman, because I was in Peru, and we were doing a temazcal, which is like a sweat lodge. And
Yep.
and I remember before we went into the temazcal, they said that like the curandero, who was leading the temazcal, I remember them saying like, if you die in temazcal, it's like you are going to die in temazcal, meaning a part of you is going to die. And that's part of what temazcal is like going into this womb and letting something die and then coming back out. But actually, like, they were sharing that like if you physically die, it's considered a great honor and a blessing that you would die in a place like that. And I just remember being like, I don't want to die. I don't want to.
Oh, I love that they actually said that.
I know. I was just like, oh shit, what have I gotten into? But yeah, and traveling has definitely come with its ups and downs, like lots of times getting sick, which we were joking before, and it's like a requirement or something.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like, okay. But yeah, I just got over being sick here in Mexico. I had some kind of like stomach flu, and also thought I was going to die and didn't, but luckily I'm still here. But yeah, I started traveling kind of when I started teaching yoga. I mean, I've been out of the country. I traveled to Spain when I was in college to study abroad, but once I started teaching yoga and I got sober, I felt like I had missed out on a lot. And just felt this like new hunger for experiences and adventure, and like just wanting to like see the world. And so I started traveling. Yeah, when I was 24, I got a work, because I was like, how can I do this with not a lot of money? Like I was 24. I still don't have a lot of money. Like, how do I do this with not a lot of money? And so I started doing work trades. So I got a work trade job in Guatemala as a yoga teacher for 2 months. And on this like yoga farm, basically. And it was living, like I had never been away for 2 months. And I was living in like a conscious community and sharing our meals, sharing our days, our work, our rooms, like everything was shared. It was yeah, communal living. And I loved it. And that just kind of like set the ball rolling. And it was like any opportunity I could to just like go to a new place and experience it, I took it. And so from Guatemala, I came back. I was home for a little while and then went to Colorado because I, at 27, thought it would be a good idea to move to Colorado in the winter and learn how to snowboard, even though I had like never. I grew up by the beach. I grew up in South Carolina. I like never been in that much snow in my life. It was like lied to get a lifty job. They were like, do you ski or snowboard? I was like, yeah, of course I do. They're like, okay. And they gave me the job. And then I got there and they were like, you don't, like, literally you do nothing. And I was like, I know. So they put me on the kiddie slope, which was hilarious. So like for the winter of whatever year that was, year 27 for me, I worked on like the kiddie, like not the like bunny slope, but like the actual like 2-year-old kids, little like, what do you call that thing? The magic carpet. Like it's like a little escalator thing. It was so fun though, and like learned how to snowboard, not very well, but like had a great time. And then from there went to Thailand for a year because I got a job teaching English. Yeah, and then went to Peru, and then it's just been like, after Peru, I did my 300-hour teacher training there, which is where the tennis school was, and where I met the Kula Collective people because I took my 300 with them, and fell in love with them. And then it was like, I want to work for you. So started that whole process, and that was like 4 or 5 years ago. And since then, I've been working for Kula, and the greatest part about that is they send me places, you know, and I get to lead these like amazing, beautiful 200-hour teacher trainings, like in beautiful places, and it's a whole month of communal living, which like I really sometimes is really tough, but I love communal living. Like I like, it's part of why I like being in Mexico is this town that I'm in now. I was here last year, and it's super small town. Like I know all my neighbors, you know, like, and
Yeah.
if I walk down the street, I'm gonna guarantee see at least one person that I know. If I go to the coffee shop, I'm gonna run into 2 or 3 people that I know. It's like, so I really thrive in that kind of community living. And so that plus like traveling and being in like, you know, beautiful places, like thriving. It's like, I can't even believe I get to live like this. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind. And then yeah, getting very, very sick along the way. I got really sick in Nepal one time, thought I was gonna die.
You told me that story and I was like, oh my God. Yeah, that was the story about the goat's milk, right?
Yeah, it was like,
Ooh. And you were there with your friend too.
yeah, it was
You both
so,
were like,
he
yeah.
was like, it's the funniest part is that I went with my friend that I met in Colorado, who's a snowboard instructor, and he's really like, bruh, like, bro. And you know, the funniest part was we got so sick drinking this coffee with goat's milk that I think came straight from the udder. So it was like the bacteria. And so for like 24 hours, we were just like dying and sharing this room. And he was taking pictures of me. I think I told you that. Like
Yeah.
while I was just like dead on the bed, just like, kill me. He was like taking secret photos of me. And then for like months after, would just like send me a photo once a month and be like, dude. And it would just be like my like dead face on this picture. I was like, damn, why would you do that? Like, so it was really funny, but not at the time. Oh my God. Yeah. Ugh,
I feel like
crazy.
also it's almost like our bodies like have to catch up with our energy field when we travel. And maybe that's why we get sick too, to like catch up on like a frequency level or just because you're in like a whole new energy. I don't know.
Mhm.
Just there's so many different ways to look at disease and illness. And
Right.
I mean, I think now when I get sick, I'm like, I view it as like like medicine. Like, what is the
Yeah.
teaching? Um,
It's a big cleansing.
even though it sucks
Yeah.
while
It's
you're in
like,
it.
yeah. Yeah. It's I look at that too, like as a cleansing, and there's usually like, I mean, we talked about this in the 300-hour, like, am I frozen? Okay.
No, you're not.
Okay, good. Your internet connection is unstable. Of course it is, because I'm in Mexico. Ooh, okay, we'll keep going.
Hmm.
Yeah, you know, it's hard to see it at the time, but that's like one, like the shamanistic way of looking at illness is actually, it's a good thing because like purging in whatever form, like whether that's, you know, we all know the forms of purging. Purging in whatever form is a way of getting dis-ease or getting shadow or getting whatever that is out. And so like I remember doing a cleanse in Peru a tobacco purge where we drank like this little shot of tobacco oil, and then you drink 7 liters of water really, really fast, and you just start purging. And like,
Oh,
it's not fun. No, it's not fun.
that sounds terrible.
It was really rough.
Did you do that with Ananda?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. She's amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing, and she is all about the
Was she like, you
shamanist.
got this, do
Yep.
this?
And like, yeah, no, we were sitting around a fire with like buckets, right? And we're all just like, "Ugh," like it's coming up. And they're like cheering us on and like, woohoo, yeah, like, and just like high-fiving. And I'm like, and it was the first time that I could switch my perspective around like purging, where, you know, like we have, where it's because I used to think if I'm throwing up, then I'm sick and this is terrible. But actually it's my body's way of getting rid of what I don't need. And so it's actually can be a really good thing, especially if you're sick, of like getting it out. And so that's how I looked at this last week. It was interesting because I moved into this new apartment that I'm like, the night I moved in is when I got sick to this new. So I've been like, interesting. And a lot of crazy stuff has happened here in Mexico. I've been here for like 2-3 months. I don't even know how long. And the energy here is really powerful. Like, I think, you know, it can be everywhere, but Troncones is like mountains and ocean very close together. So like, I'm literally looking at mountains right now, and I can turn around and look at the ocean. It's like that close.
Yes.
So beautiful, but it's like a vortex. And
Yep.
like, I was sitting on the beach one day recently, and it hit me. I was like, why is everything so amplified here? Like the energy, conflict, things, you know, like inner conflict, things like that is amplified here. And it's like that reflection. They're bouncing off of each other. You know, everything is just a reflection. So this energy is like big time here. And I think everywhere really, like right now. But yeah, so I looked at it as like get it out, clean it out, and
Yeah.
let it go.
That's such a great way to describe how the energy feels there too. And it takes me right to Santa Teresa in Costa Rica, because I lived like in the jungle towards the mountains, but then you could literally walk to the beach and it was on a bed of selenite. So it was like, yeah, yes. And I met a lot of people there and healers there. And it like took me in. My soul got called there, and then I got dengue. I learned some lessons. One of the dark night of the souls. I feel like we have so multiple, at least I do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know,
Same.
it took me in and spit me out. Like it's just so so much cleansing happening, you know, and shedding. So yeah, it's definitely, you know, I think it's easier for me now when I am sick to kind of stay more grounded and stay out of a fear space, you know, instead of, well, I still kind of go to like, oh shit, I'm dying. But
Yeah. It's like I resort back to like being a kid again. So, like, you know, where it's just like I just want the physical comforts of like, I want my mom, basically.
Yes.
Is how I get. I'm like, I want my mom.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like I feel like being sick in in a foreign country is like just another experience. Like I was here and I don't have AC here. I don't have hot water, and it's just like part of the roughing it a little bit. But like when I'm sick and it's 100 degrees and like I'm just in my room, like I was like, I think I'm literally in hell right now. I think I'm in hell. Like this is hell. But it's like we go to that like that primal like, or like infant state of like, I just want all the physical comforts. And I think that's really natural. But I think like, yeah, remembering that like, okay, this is like this is something good. This is something good because it's clearing out whatever my body
Right.
did not want, or my mind. Because, yeah, it's like sometimes we're holding on to stuff. And I mean, I know I am shadows and emotional stuff that like I didn't even know I was holding on to, and this like goes back to the spiritual path where I'm like, no, I'm good now. Like that whole like linear thing of like, okay, I've fought my demons, like I've looked at my shadows, I've done all this work, like it should be smooth sailing from here on out. And then it's like, but that's not the way it works,
I know. It's like,
Like,
oh,
no,
I'm
here you
already
go.
good. I healed that. And then something else
Yeah.
comes up. Yeah. It's like constantly that spiral of revisiting situations and then maybe operating from a different level of awareness or perspective. I feel like we could go down the rabbit hole and just talk about that in general. Isn't it kind of amazing that like you and I could be in the same place at the same time, but have a different experience because of perception? And like our filters like as who we are. Like I know like you mentioned Sunny before, and she was one of the other Kula facilitators that worked with us with our training, but she talked about like with the frequency work as we go on through life, it's like we acquire all these different filters. And it just, I don't know, I just think I've been noticing how different like perception is with different people, and it's like it's just like right.
I think about that a lot, like wherever I am, I'm like, I wonder how this person views like even like a sunset, like they're taking it in with a completely different filter, completely different story, because we have all these stories, that like basically like define our reality. And so like I look at the world or a person and I have like a story in the back of my head that goes with it, so like, oh, like for me now I'm in Mexico, here's a sunset, oh, I was in Mexico last year, here's all these stories that went with that. And that sunset is going to look completely different to me because I've seen it so many times now, to then a person on vacation here, like for a week, and they're just like, yeah. And that's interesting that you brought up perception, because something I've been working on since I've been back here in Mexico and just in general is a word that my friend Colleen gave me, which is non-conceptual awareness. And because when you talk about perspective, like it's really like a story. And so when I got to Mexico this year, I was here for a full season, winter season last year, had an amazing time, had all these friends here. And so when I came back this year, I was like, I knew my friends were all going to be here. I knew I would have the same job. So in my mind, it was going to be the same like experience. And it's not. Like, when is it ever? When is it literally ever the same?
Yeah.
And so I came back and it's been completely different. Like 3 of my friends already left because like 2 of them had a bike accident. They're okay, but they had to go back to the States because one of them broke their elbow.
Oh my
And
gosh.
like, I have other friends that are leaving. Like, work is different. Everything's different. And it's like when I'm comparing this year to last year, or when I'm comparing this to anything, that's when I get into like a storyline and some kind of suffering, because I'm like, well, it should be this way. It should be like it used to be. And so Colleen mentioned like non-conceptual awareness, which is like showing up in any moment with like non-concept. So without the story and just pure
or without
awareness.
Expectation.
Right. Simple way to put it. Yeah.
Hard.
But it's like showing up with fresh eyes. So even if like I'm going on a walk that I've been on a million times, like how do I go on that walk and just try to like open my awareness and have fresh eyes to where I can see the trees and the like the fauna and everything around me in a different perspective, because I'm not putting a story to it or a concept on it. Same thing in relationships. Like if I show up to have coffee or talk to you or with anybody, and I think, oh, this is my friend Lindsay, we have all this history together, and that's great. And like, would it be different if I showed up with like like taking you completely in as just like who you are right now, not like who you were
Whoa.
yesterday. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. That
Yes.
just inspired a thought.
Mm.
While talking to you always. Usually you and I don't even communicate with words. We're just like, I like miss seeing you
It's so true.
at the studio and just being like, beep, 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 beep,
Yeah, like
and you're like, yeah, we just get it. But
just like make
yes,
all these like eyes at each other.
it's almost like, yes, I'm so glad that you mentioned that too. It's like, how can I experience presence, really? I feel like is what we're kind of talking about. But you experiencing me today, and I don't even know what day it is because we're filming this before Tuesday, of course, but I don't know, March something. I'm a different Lindsay than the last time I saw you in December for the solstice women's gathering. Like I'm a different being from then. Or like, isn't that, and that is amazing too. And also like, how do we release those stories or those experiences with other people and then continue to experience them in full presence and in a new way? But also this is going to be fun, right? What about also framing your own energy and having boundaries? So that's like, because I like to see people in their highest light, and that's definitely got me in trouble in the past, but experiencing someone, and then I guess, how do you have boundaries with them? Or then also, how do you have grace with them to allow them to shift into somebody different or a better version of themselves, you know?
Right. I think it's like, well, non-conceptual really doesn't, it's not even like good or bad. Like, so even saying like, how do I experience someone in their best light or in their highest light? That would be putting a concept on it.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah. So how can I
how do we do that?
This person? Yeah. But I wouldn't say like boundaries are still important, I think. And I for the little, remembering like that, to hold yourself, and the little Lindsay and little Stevie inside is like just because I'm practicing non-conceptual awareness doesn't mean I need to practice it with everyone and everything. And like, I don't need to run to this person that hurt me and try to go see them with fresh eyes. It's like, that's not serving either one of us, so it's like, no, like, but yeah, even putting like, I'm even trying to see this person as like, I think what happens naturally with that kind of practice of that awareness is like, you do see people in like a new way and have more compassion for them, and do see them in like a lighter way, because you're not like I'm not putting this like judgment or story on them. But again, it's like everything else is like a practice, it's not like something that can be perfectly done all the time, especially I think, and I am no relationship expert, but I think in like romantic relationships,
Same.
I've been single for a while now.
Living our best lives though.
Yeah. But I think, or even like, okay, so romantic relationship, but also like even just really close friendships, people that are like you're seeing on a regular basis, like even those, we can get into such a routine with people of like, and I think that's where the mundane comes in, and where we get maybe, or like, I know I get bored or resistant, because we're just playing these roles, and it's like, okay, yeah, you're you, I'm me, we're going to do this whole dance because this is what we've been doing forever. And like, if I could approach that friendship or that relationship, seeing that person like wake up in the morning and see them with fresh eyes, and really take in like active listening and really receive them entirely, like, then it would create all this new energy for that relationship, and like infinite potential and creativity for that relationship to go in all different directions, rather than it just being like, okay, here we are again playing our roles, and I'm going to play me and you're going to play you. It's like, it reminds me of the Eckhart Tolle, like New Earth. Did you ever read that book?
Yeah.
And I always talk about this in like trainings, because there's a practice which is like essentially the same thing, non-conceptual awareness, where you like go out and look at a flower, or you can look at a tree, but try not to label it a flower or a tree. Like when you look at it, try not to say like, oh, this is like in your mind, like a flower, what type, this is a rose, this is a pink. Instead, just try to completely take it in without any kind of word label at all, and just let it be whatever it is. And I actually did that practice, and I was like, it's just
Yeah.
like the world got a lot bigger when I was able to do that. So I think that's what it does for me, like in relationships too, is my world gets a lot bigger.
I think that's amazing. I think
Yeah.
it is great. And it's just, trying to find the present moment or just be in
Basically what it is.
presence, because it's like, I know you mentioned suffering before too, which I wanted to touch on. It's like, I was talking to another friend who's on the yogic path as well, and we're talking about like, oh, well, if I just release my attachment to this, that, and the other thing, then I won't suffer anymore. And I was like, well, how do we do that?
Yeah.
Like, is that what we're here to do, is to release our suffering? Or is it's also, but suffering is our path. Like, so it's like that whole, I feel like the word duality just keeps coming in right now, but like experiencing the suffering, but also how do we limit and like detach from the suffering? Is that the balance of life? Are we talking about the secrets of life here?
Yeah, I think these are the secrets of life that we'll never know.
No, we just don't know. It's like,
No.
is that the goal? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it depends on what you choose to believe, I guess. It's like, the Buddha would say like life is suffering, and like it's to go beyond that. But like the tantric way would say to go into it and go into the body and feel everything. And so I guess it just depends on your path. But yeah, like I do find that the more integrated I become, like through these practices of feeling my feelings, not the story, again, it's not like I'm feeling depressed because so and so did this to me, or this is happening in my life and I'm sick, or da da da. It's like that's not the feeling, that's the story, that's the thought process around it. The feeling is the physical sensation of whatever. So like by doing that practice, non-conceptual awareness practice, like all these practices that we do on our path, whatever our path is, like I think for me it's like the Paramahansa Yogananda quote, where like eventually all this stuff will kind of start falling away. What I've noticed is that's happened is like there is less suffering. Like as time goes on, as I keep practicing these things, there's less suffering. Or I could look at it like there is less suffering, or it's just like I've learned how to welcome it in, like I'm reading Women Who Run with the Wolves again. And have you read that? Oh
I have that
so
book.
good.
I have
It's
all the
so
books you've
good.
mentioned so far. I have. And it's like, I have literally, I just ordered another book this morning. You mentioned Iyengar. This is so weird, or not, it's totally aligned, but I was looking at my Facebook memories this morning. So stupid. But my friend Christy, bless you, love you, Christy. She had wrote on my Facebook wall like 12 years ago about this Iyengar book called Light on Yoga. Have you read that? I just bought it this morning. And then you mentioned Iyengar today. I'm like, just add that to the pile. I have piles everywhere, half-read books everywhere. I'm like, so many books, not enough time.
I have a lot of half-read books back home. Yeah, well, and this was one of those half-reads that like never finished. So I brought it with me, and I've been reading it. And she talks about that, like life, death, life, mother or energy or whatever you choose to call it, but it's she calls it lo que sabe, that which knows. It's like life, death, life. And so she talks about these like cycles and how we have to take death like into relationship, because it's like you said, duality. suffering, like there is no life without death. There cannot be, because what is it without death? There's just like, what are we? Like, we're just, without suffering, without all the, not just physical death, but the death of like ourselves and our parts of ourselves and relationships and jobs and seasons in our life. Like all of, like, death is happening constantly. And a lot of times the suffering comes in when we can't like embrace, and when we can't like really come into relationship with that death. It's like suffering is really the second arrow. Like, pain happens in life, but suffering happens when we can't really fully accept and bring in that whatever's happening, that death, into our arms, and like into our relationship with ourselves. And so again, that's like goes back to the cyclical nature of this path, is like we have to, I think it's inevitable that we're going to come up upon these like deaths again and again and again and again. And the more we can love that, like the easier it is. But so I think that's like made it easier for me over time. Like the things that happen in my life just don't seem as horrific as they used to. Everything used to be such a big deal. Like,
Yeah.
like everything is like, I'm dying, but yeah, so it's made it a little easier.
It is interesting too. I think I read a quote, I'll probably butcher it, but we were talking about relationships and death and transformations and all this. And I have a lot of, Sarah did my birth chart, and I have a shitload of Scorpio. Who's surprised at that? Not me, but I have a lot of Scorpio in my chart. And basically what she said is like, I am in a constant state of shedding. Like I'm always shedding. I'm like, oh, hey, I'm a new version of me. Hey, I'm a new version of me. Hey, I'm a new version of me. And so like, of course, her and I, like, we laughed about it as far as like what I'm going to need eventually from a romantic partner, someone who can accept like, oh, so you were like that 6 months ago, but now you're embodying something a little bit different. Okay. And it's just, she said the level, and we all do this, we all shed, but she's like, the level at which I'm shedding is very rapid. So it might be a little hard. Someone needs to hold the reins, frame the energy. Yeah. I'm sure he's out there. Bless you, wherever you are. Anyways, I read this romantic quote, and it was like, being in a committed relationship is witnessing the funerals of the one that you love over and over again. And I just got chills.
I did too.
Because I was like, that is so beautiful. I'm waiting for that. You know what I'm saying? But like, yes, like embracing, death is happening all over. And it's like, if you can have the perception of that, it's like, phases of life. Like you're, like you were in South Carolina, and now that phase ended, and now you're in Mexico. And like, we're just constantly, moving through the life death cycle. It's, that's just like my brain right now.
Yay. I know. Well, I was literally reading last night, and it's been something that I've been thinking a lot about, and like these cycles, and how really like, that's where most of the suffering comes from, is when we hold on to the story, and when we like, I love how all this is just tying in together, or I hope it is, because to me it is. It's like, wow,
I mean, to me
like,
it is, but you know me and you are.
I know people are gonna be like, what did I just listen to? Like, anyway, but I love how it's like tying together, and that it's like something that I've really realized is like this unwillingness to let go of the story, or unwillingness to let go of the story of who I think I am, or I want people to think I am, or who I want this person to think I am. Like letting and being able to just be like shedding constantly. It takes practice, it takes compassion, but it's like, that's where the suffering lessens, is when I'm able to just like, all right, here we go again, here we are again, and out with the old and with, constantly. So
also like that, embodying the ability to create a new story for yourself, like knowing that you are worthy of shifting into a different timeline if you desire it, because you are the creator of your reality. And so like Lindsay in December, like I was writing a different story then. And maybe I'm writing a new story now. And it's like, I'm going to hold the pen to my story, and like taking the power away from, you know, that whole idea again of perception. Like, people, you experience me and I experience you and I love you. I mean, but maybe someone else experiences me when I'm having a shitty day and they're like, I don't like her. I don't like her vibe. It's just like all about, it's all about perception and energy and filters. And isn't that amazing about life though, that like you can experience me and someone else could experience me, totally different experience.
Right.
But that's what makes it all. It's all of it. Contrast, conflict, all of it. Shadow, light. And like, I remember I was doing shadow work and, you know, someone was like, well, why do you want to do that? Because then you're going to kind of draw in more of the shadow. Like law of attraction says, if you bring in what you focus on. Yes and no. Like, I love the law of attraction, but I also feel like we have to look at our darkness. We have to look at what's going on and declutter and detoxify all of that. And I don't know. What are your thoughts?
We have to, well, I'm going to do the little.
Oh yeah. My gosh. Yes. Because we've been talking for so long and we didn't even get to talk about ceremony or Bhakta.
I know. We'll have to
just do a little disclaimer. Let's do part 2.
Let's do part 2. We'll do it for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I wish I hadn't done that dance because I forgot what the last thing that you said was.
We were talking about the law of attraction and also toxic positivity. There was that out there too. Like, don't worry about it, love and light. No, that's not. Well, that's also not the shamanic path.
Right, and that's like the spiritual bypassing. You know, it's like the toxic positivity. Like, no, it's fine. And I think there's a quote by Carl Jung. It's probably in your manual. It's where I remember seeing it. It's like, we don't be, and I'm probably going to butcher this too, but it's like, we don't become enlightened by imagining light. We become enlightened by making what is dark or facing what is dark and bringing it to the light. So it's like, we have to look at the dark to bring it up.
Otherwise, and that's shamanism.
Yeah. Because I think about like colors. If I look at it like if I'm avoiding the dark, then my like light is going to really be like a gray color because like it's all like seeping up, you know, like the dark shadows. Even if I'm like, everything's fine all the time, everything's good, like what's actually present is just this like gray, like I just picture this like gray smoky light that's not serving me or anybody. But the more that I pull that darkness up and out, and that really just takes tending to myself, you know, and all these things that we've talked about today is like really being with myself and being loving and compassionate and kind, and but also having like being willing to have an honest look at ourselves, which is like can be really hard, but really fruitful and worth it. So thank you so much for your time today. You know, I love you, and we'll definitely have to do part 2 so we can talk about ceremony and Bhakta. But you know, if people want to connect with you, like what's the best way that they can connect with you? Oh, I'm like so bad with technology.
Just send you a message telepathically.
Yeah, just like, no, I would say like no, it's so funny because people are always like, do you have a website, a card, anything? And I'm like, no. But I have Instagram, and I do post on there like some Bhakti stuff, and I have my little link for Kula on there where I'm doing trainings with them, and anything else I post or anything else I'm going to be doing in the future, I'll post like on Linktree. Cool. So if you want to like attach that somewhere.
Yeah, just in your bio. It'll be in the bio. Okay. So cool. Well, thank you so much. I feel like you and I could literally talk for hours on end just about all the things. So
I know.
Yes, thank you. Thank you everybody for listening or watching, like however you're consuming the information today. But yeah, thank you. This is Lindsay Warwick, Tattva Tuesday, check in. Yeah, every week. Thanks, Stevie.
Thanks, love. Thank you.